two of these opioid handouts, I primarily focused on the pain pathway and how the opioids work in the body and what are some of the side effects, and as nurses, what you have to watch for. In this 5-minute audio, I'm going to really focus on the scheduled substances. I briefly had mentioned that Schedule 1 is almost illegal, like example heroin, LSD and marijuana. I did say medical marijuana is more available now, but in order to give a prescription, you need a complete different set of rules that you have to follow. So Schedule 2 is the most commonly used. If you look at the drugs here, you have hydrocodone, you have morphine, you have hydromorphone, you have oxycodone, you have fentanyl. All of these are Schedule 2 medication. So when you say a drug is Schedule 2, they are high potential for abuse, potentially severe psychological or physical dependence, and they're considered dangerous. So as nurses, when you work on the floor, you should be aware that anytime you give opioids, you have to keep track of where you're giving, how much you're giving, and you are responsible for any amount you take. It has to be in a locked box, and anything that you waste, let's say you're going to give half a tablet and you have to waste half a tablet. Somebody has to witness it and sign off on it, and they're strictly regulated. And if you are held responsible for missing one half tablet, you will be written up. So as nurses, always remember that you would be very careful when you deal with any time you are asked to count something, not only opioids, narcotics, but also amphetamines, any drug, that's risk for physical abuse or, addiction tolerance. Unfortunately, nurses are high risk for abuse. So it's very important that you're aware of this as well, and not be under cautious when you give it to your colleagues or when somebody is witnessing or you're a witness for somebody for when you count these medications. Just be aware. So let's look at Schedule 3. If you look at Schedule 3, they are moderate to low potential, but still they are high risk. If you look at this table here, codeine is the only drug. Okay, and then you have other like steroids, which is not our focus for this lecture, but in general, look at Schedule 4. You do have tramadol, which is also a pain medication. It's an opioid too. And then you have other medications such as Ativan, Valium. These are benzodiazepines, okay? And you do have Schedule 5 as well. But just for the sake of this course, I want you to know what these controlled substances mean and why are they placed in higher numbers than Schedule 2 versus Schedule 5. I hope you understand this part. We could talk more in class if needed. So let's look at some of these drugs. And this table is called the equianalysis table. If you remember from before, morphine was the very first drug that was actually invented, if you want to call, right? So everything is based on morphine. So if you look at morphine, which other drugs do you think are equivalent or equianalgesic? So if you look at morphine, it's available in oral, parenteral, meaning you could give it IV, intramuscular, intravenous, and it says the dosing interval and it tells you the forms it's available. You could give it IV, you could give it subcutaneously. Excuse me. So why don't you look at what are the equivalent of morphine here? Would you say morphine is equivalent to hydrocodone here? Right? So that's 30 to 30, right? Only you're comparing only the PO part here, the oral. However, if you look at the other drugs, for instance, let's look at oxycodone, right? If you look at oxycodone, what do you think it's equivalent to that? Now you might say methadone, but methadone is very different. You don't have to really worry about methadone in this lecture. It's not only an opioid, it's an NMDA agonist. It's used for addiction, so just don't really pay much importance to this. I really want you to focus on morphine and then its equivalent in the pure term only as hydrocodone, okay? If you look at codeine, it's much low potency, and that's why if you see codeine, it was placed somewhere in Schedule 3, and if you remember, small amounts of this are also mixed with Robitussin nighttime, like cough syrups, right? So just pay attention to this, and then also pay attention to oxycodone, right? And that's a little stronger drug. See, you need only less of this drug to have the same potential as morphine, right? Whereas this is the most potent hydrochloroquine that's Dilaudid. Thank you.